Hello, my name is Tommy Watkins, and this is my first episode of my podcast called The Writer's Cut. And what this podcast is about is I'm a writer. I've written about 40 books this year alone, and I have about 45 titles in total in my library. So I wanted to kind of start this podcast to explain each book I've written and the meaning behind it and what its purpose was, and to kind of help get more visual and promotion for it as well, and try to kind of explain the backstory on each story and why it was written and everything. I think that's kind of a cool way to go about different stories and understand them better. So the first book we're going to be talking about today that I wrote is actually my very first children's book I wrote. I focus mostly on children's stories I write. However, I do write, I've written some dramas and other short stories and just different kind of like journalistic books as well. So I've kind of dabbled in a lot of different things, but my main focus is mostly children's books. So the first book that I've written that we're going to talk about today is called The Food Quest: Adventures Through a Windy City. I started this book writing in 2022, and the Food Quest came from a TikTok page I started back in 2021. Basically, I would go around to different restaurants in Chicago and other places I've visited and review like restaurants and review like the food and things like that. So, and they were 30-second clips and would do like just like a voiceover read over the footage I would get. So I did that all throughout 2021 and grew the TikTok page to 22,000 followers. And I was doing a lot of different sponsor gigs and stuff like that. It was pretty cool. And then I hit 2022 and decided to travel. And the first big trip I took for Food Quest was to Los Angeles. So I spent like 4 or 5 days out there, going to different restaurants, getting footage of Joshua Tree and Griffith Observatory and things like that. And then after that, the views kind of like died down. I wasn't getting the same like traction I was getting in 2021 with it. And I'm from Chicago. That's where I'm based out of. So that's like that kind of like vibe and energy I was getting from the videos back then. I wasn't getting the same after the LA trip. So, and I think TikTok, the algorithm and stuff kind of changed after that. At least it felt like that to me, where things kind of changed and whatnot. So I needed kind of a change of pace. And the first thought was like, oh, maybe I could do like a children's book and write about my journey and kind of script a character that's like a little boy and that's trying to find a hot dog and kind of take from what I've experienced through the different, the journey of going to find this new food and stuff like that, and um doing that. So basically, I started writing this book. I actually did another trip with Food Quest. I went to New York like a couple months later after LA. And then after New York, I started writing the Food Quest book. So I wrote it in, like a week or a couple weeks, just kind of scripted it together and everything like that and kind of pieced it. It was my very first one. So I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But I was just trying to formulate like a story of, okay, this is about a little boy who's going to go find a hot dog in the city of Chicago, but we're going to call it the Windy City. And these are the things that he's going to endure, but also there's going to be some like factual, like fun fact elements in part with the story to kind of help bridge the arc of the script, essentially. So how it kind of went down was that I wrote this book pretty quickly, and then I had to hire an illustrator. Basically, I started with Fiverr to hire the illustrator. Didn't have much luck, and then I went to Upwork, and then I was like kind of, had a set budget in mind for it of like how much I was going to charge and, how much I was going to be able to get for somebody as well. So I went through a lot of trial and error through that. I found some people that were really good, but it was way out of my budget. I'm like, whoa, okay, I don't know if that's going to work. So eventually I stumbled on one girl who I ended up hiring for it, and she was great. Um, had set a budget for it and we agreed upon it. And basically how the process worked was that I had the script written out, and then I wrote a story. I drew out a storyboard. I downloaded like a storyboard app, like off my iPad, and basically drew out with like an Apple Pen, like each like page and like of what was going on in the scene, and then also the dialogue and everything like that. So essentially I like sent all that to her, of course, paid her the budget and everything like that. and we got to work. And she actually got done with the illustrations pretty quickly. It only took like a month to do it all. It's about a 28-page book, so it wasn't like a super ton, a lot of illustrations, but it was still like, like I said, it's my first book. So I'm like, I don't know, how this is really going to go. And basically, yeah, I got it done in the first, in a month. Everything was together. The words were on the page. Like that's kind of, I'll show here in a minute of what the book actually looks like. And so it was done. I basically I use IngramSpark as my distributor. They're self-publishing distribution website. Basically what they do is you upload your book, whether it's in a Word format or PDF or whatever. They print paperback, hardcover, and they also do ebooks online as well. And essentially you upload it to there, and then it gets sent out. Usually how the process works, I probably could do another video on how my full process is of how I do it and publish the books and everything like that. But basically you upload it, you set the price for how much you want to spend. So I always try to be competitive with it, like what other books are selling, like on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and that kind of thing. So I set my price, and then basically once you get it published, it takes like 2-3 days. You get a proof back like via email of like what it's going to look like and if you're happy with how it's set up and everything like that. So I published my book and the first book here with Food Quest. It took me a month to figure out, which was crazy because what had happened was I had gotten the PDF, like all the illustrations done, the words were on the page, it looked great, but I had a really, really hard time of setting like the dimensions and the specs of it. So basically when you upload a book through IngramSpark, if it's like a PDF or like for my case, like children's books and things, you have to have it like PDF, like print ready in like a specific format so it can print on like paperbacks and hardcovers and that kind of thing, as well as like having the set like margins correct so that it doesn't cut off like words on pages or things like that or look goofy or whatever. And for whatever reason, I just couldn't figure it out. I also don't think I was following the instructions very well, like from their handbook of what they present to their clients. So it took me like a good month to print basically. So the Food Quest book didn't get real. It was supposed to be released in August of 2022. It didn't really get released till September 2022, which is wild looking back thinking about that. It's like, and because nowadays, after even this year alone of publishing 40 books, it's like I just do it like that, like it's nothing. So it's kind of crazy to see how far I've come with it all. But yeah, so the Food Quest came out in September and it did pretty well. It's very exciting, like around friends and family and just people in your life and stuff when you've written like a first book, because it's like it's not something you really hear about every day. Like, oh my gosh, like you wrote your first book, that's pretty cool. Like it's different. It's a different kind of vibe. So yeah, it took a while obviously it took me like a month to publish and everything like that. And then we got it done. And then like a month later, I got it out. So this is what the Food Quest looks like. So this is the paperback copy. So basically, it's like a gloss like cover essentially. This is like the pages of it. It's a little bit, I'll try to kind of show a couple, like that's a page. And then the back cover is the back cover. So that's the paperback, and then the hardcover, same deal. Same thing with the pages, same thing. And then the back is the back. The hardcover is a lot nicer. They're more expensive, obviously, but they're a lot nicer to work with. I think they last a lot longer and moreover than the paperbacks, but the hardcovers are nice. I like the hardcovers a lot. Every book I've written with a hardcover that I've gotten or given out to people, like the hardcover is just where it's at. Like I said, it's a little bit more expensive, obviously, to print and sell for, but it's really worthwhile. So basically in this next segment here, I'm going to post the book as a PDF, as a ebook essentially, and show it here with the podcast, like so you can read it here. So that will be this segment plugging in here right now. write. Is my very first book, children's book to write. Looking back on this book, there are some things I definitely probably made mistakes on, like as far as like grammar. I think there are some, reading it back, it's like, ooh, I probably should have wrote that differently or should have rephrased that sentence differently and things like that. But overall, it was the first book was a fun process. I thought the illustrations turned out outstanding. And that's really what, to me, was what really is the punch of this book. Like, what really is like the wow factor, especially the cover for me. Like, the cover of this looks like, to me, it kind of comes off like a movie poster in a way. So it's very good. The logo, the Food Quest, actually wasn't done by my illustrator. It's actually done by a friend of mine who's a graphic designer. He helped do the logo for the Food Quest, as well as my business, Pickwick Studios, where the books is the publishing house of all these books right now. So it's yeah, he did the logo for that, and it worked perfectly with the cover and how it all blends together. It's really great. So, like I said previously, the aftermath of it was pretty good. I mean, it was received pretty well. It was a pretty poppin' book, and this was September 2022. So I sold a good amount of them, and like I said, it's the very first book, so everyone, people in your life are excited about it. You're super excited as the author, and everything's kind of popping and everything like that. And the premise of this book at the end of the day really was to kind of showcase everything I went through, what I've been through from doing the Food Quest TikTok account and publishing those videos. And there's a part in the book where Tommy, and that's the main character who's trying to find a hot dog in the city of Chicago, we call it the Windy City. He's going through all different four seasons just to find this perfect hot dog. And that comes from me personally. Like, I went and did these TikTok videos in the rain, snow, blazing hot heat in Chicago. We literally deal with four seasons, like, and sometimes four seasons in one day, which is crazy. I mean, it's so nuts to think about. But I like it. A lot of the books I've written, and it really started with Food Quest here, where I try to take it from personal experience to some level of degree. It doesn't have to be a huge thing, but I think that's the beauty of writing stories is sometimes you can take like the really smallest thing and turn it into this really wonderful script and a really fun story, interactive story, or, stories that have meaning and purpose. And it's really what Food Quest was. And I was really derived from that TikTok account. And to be honest with you, like, one of the things I like to do for fun is try new restaurants. And that's really where the whole Food Quest concept came from. I just like going and trying new restaurants I haven't been to, and different food and stuff like that. I always felt for the longest time that going and trying new foods is like an adventure, and that's what Food Quest emulates, is that adventurous component of, hey, this is the quest to find great food, right? The adventure to find great food. And there's something that ticks your stomach, your heart, and your stomach, that, hey, like, once you find that perfect hot dog, or that perfect steak, or that amazing slice of pizza, like, it's like, you feel like you're kind of on like a cloud nine, or at least I do. And that's kind of where the book really derived and came from, essentially. So yeah, and for future projects, so with Food Quest, this is the only Food Quest book I have written so far. The purpose of this book is to expand it into multiple stories across multiple cities. I also wrote this as a screenplay and a treatment for a children's animated television show, which I spent the last year doing that for about 6 months in 2023, when pitched it to some producers in Hollywood and stuff. And it's still an open door at this point. It didn't, it never got greenlit or anything, but I'm still rewriting it and working through it. But I kind of turned it into like a whole world where it's not just Tommy finding a hot dog. There's multiple other characters and multiple things, multiple like characters and places and everything like that. And the next book that I talk about here in the next episode, Leftover Larry, is kind of a multiverse of the Food Quest in a way, which is kind of cool. But it's turned into a whole show and everything like that. But also my phone and my notes, I have working titles of the book, like Food Quest Crusade Across the City of Angels, that's Los Angeles. Biting into a red apple, that's New York. Sunshine, like, there's just everywhere. In places I've been, like Florida and Michigan, Alaska, where my brother lives, like things like that. Like, there's just different stories and different like food items we can incorporate in characters and things like that. So I mean, right now it's just the one book I've written, and I just paused it because I had other stories I had my notes and that I wanted to pursue, and I just didn't want to just be stuck to one story. But that doesn't mean, obviously, writing a TV show, a children's TV show for it was like a scope of like what I really envisioned it to be. And I think could get there eventually here, which is really exciting. So we'll see. I think, and I'm sure one of these episodes too, I'll talk about what the screenplay was, what it is, and what it's intended to be, and what the goal is. I can tell you now that like the show, how I wrote it or how I'm rewriting it as well is I'm trying to make it more like Rugrats meets Magic School Bus in a 10-minute episode. Like each episode's 10 minutes. So we'll see. I'm open. I'm still working through it and rewriting it and things like that. But I'm hoping in the future that, that turns into fruition with this. But I'm also like kind of trying to look for like ways to continue this series too. Like, let's write about the LA book next. Let's write about the New York book next. Let's go to Florida. Let's go to Wisconsin. And then just different places, different food and things like that. So besides just what this is. And with this book right now, is it my favorite book I've written? No. After the 45 I've done at this point, no. But it is the first one, and it does have a lot of meaning and special like things for me, which is cool. But right now, no, it's not. It's not my favorite. I think I wrote it looking back, like I could have wrote it with a little bit more conflict than what's in there right now. Like the only real conflict Tommy goes through as a character in this book is going through the four seasons and then of the weather, in Chicago, and then he kind of wants to give up, but then oh wait, here's the hot dog randomly. So there's not like a ton of conflict, and then like how come all of a sudden he just finds the hot dog? Where was there anything that led up to that? There wasn't a lot of character development either. But like I said, it was my very first book back then in 2022, and that's that's what it was. And the illustrations really like blow it out of the water. So for me, for the kind of crappy writing in a way, the illustrations just completely take it over, and that's what I'm really proud of with this first book that I've written. So that's my first episode of the Writers Podcast at this point, of going over the book and things like that. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Obviously, I'll get better at this as I go along. I might try to do some more stuff and whatever, like try to do live streams or things like that, or talk about more characters. I think I can go in a few different directions with this, which would be really, really cool. This is my first one. So like I said, I'm open and excited about it. And hopefully I'm going to talk about every book I've written, even the ones that are kind of R rated that I've written. I'm going to go through all of them, and I think it'll be a really fun journey. So